just thinking over this Christmas weekend, I kind of started asking myself the question, is Hugh Freeze actually Santa Claus?
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Merry Christmas to you all, and Merry Christmas to my Monday guest, as always, Lindsay Crosby of auburndaily.com and the host of Locked On MLB Prospects. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for finding time for us to get this in still.
Yes, it is before the holiday season as we sit down to do this, but I still think the conversation will be extremely relevant moving forward. I asked, kind of tongue-in-cheek, is Hugh Freeze actually Santa Claus, Lindsay? Obviously, he's not jolly old St. Nick, but he's already given the Auburn fan base so many great presents, right? I mean, we saw it last week with signing day, and we've got several different things that we're going to list out that he has already given the Auburn fan base. But they all go to one thing, and that's what we're going to start with. The first, and I think the best present that a head coach can give the Auburn fan base or any fan base is hope. Hope, something that Auburn fans haven't really felt in a minute. I think some folks felt it when Brian Harsin was hired, and then over the course of the first few months, I think that slowly dissipated. But looking at what Hugh Freeze has done, he's already kind of started walking the walk to back up the talk. To me, hope is the biggest thing. He's given that to Auburn fans in just a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, look at this team, Penn State. I mean, we felt like, okay, we're not hanging with non-SEC teams. Yeah. And then you go out there and you struggle against SEC opponents, and it's like, okay, we're not recruiting, we're not winning. The coaching isn't very good because they don't make any sort of adjustments at halftime. And it's like, what are we going to do? And they fire Brian Harsin. Cadillac comes in, keeps the team motivated, and then Hugh Freeze comes in. And this is literally a 180-degree turn from where it was 2 months ago. I mean, if you take the mood of the fan base on October 30th compared to now, it is completely opposite, which is a great thing. But I have to admit, I was a little skeptical that you would see this type of improvement this quickly. And I think that's the really cool thing that Hugh Freeze did was he wants to be here, and he's passionate about Auburn and making Auburn a better place. And I'm not sure with some of the other candidates that were discussed, like a Lane Kiffin or a Deion Sanders, that you would have gotten that. But we've gotten that from Hugh Freeze, and I'm grateful for it.
We haven't seen him at the podium for press conferences too often, right? That first one, and then we heard from him on Wednesday. And he's been pretty consistent with his messaging of saying, hey, this program's not where an Auburn football program should be. And he loves that he's the guy to be able to take on that challenge. And to me, that is kind of signifying hope, right? Because this is a guy that realizes I'm going to come here anyway because I want to be here, even though the job may not be as good as it once was because of the way it's been managed for the last half of a decade.
Mismanaged.
And I think, yeah, sure. And then what has happened since he's been hired, I think has done nothing but cultivate positive feelings throughout the fan base, throughout the coaching staff, throughout the boosters, throughout the fan base. I mean, it's been great. It's been great. The second thing, and I think we've already kind of alluded to this somewhat, is the gift of revamping the recruiting class in such a short amount of time. Signing day was fun, Lindsay. Signing day was fun for the first time that I can remember in a hot minute. I mean, I remember where I was when Derek Brown flipped and picked Auburn. I don't know if he technically flipped, but he picked Auburn over Georgia. I'll remember where I was when I was watching Keldrick Falk pick up the Auburn hat over the FSU hat. And I'll remember where I was when I got the notification that Kayan Lee had flipped and chosen Auburn over Ohio State. I'll remember that because I think those two guys are going to have tremendous impact. Maybe not to the level that Derek Brown did. Obviously, that's the goal. That would be huge if that were to happen. But just those big recruiting wins, there hasn't really been a whole lot of those where it came down to the wire on signing day, and we got a few of those. It was a blast. Thank you, Hugh Freeze.
And I think the big thing on those recruiting wins and the flips are it's Auburn flipping the best recruiting teams. It's not
Correct.
Auburn getting a flip from a Baylor or Auburn getting a flip from even somewhere like an Ole Miss. We flipped Ohio State and Georgia. And it's like, if you're going to flip, I mean, you're flipping the teams.
FSU.
I'm sorry.
Keldrick to FSU.
Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
You're good.
You flipped Ohio State and Florida State. Like, you're flipping blue chip programs that are like storied in the history of college football, who for the most part have either been recruiting on a very high level, like an Ohio State, or have historically recruited at a very high level, like a Florida State. And so it gives a lot of, like, it kind of supports the idea that we fixed it when it comes to recruiting. Like, you want to believe, you want to hope that, like, yeah, you know, we're doing better than we were, and this staff is better than the last staff was. But, like, this is the proof. They're flipping not only Power 5 guys, they're flipping blue chip guys that would have gone to national championship contenders in Ohio State,
right?
And historic programs like Florida State. And it's just makes you feel really good that, like, this is sustainable. This is not just they didn't get lucky. They did it multiple times in the first 21 days of their tenure here. They can definitely win these battles down the road.
And not only did they go and get these flips and these talented guys, but they got them at positions of need. And in the past, even when there's been recruiting wins, it's been at positions of strength, right? I mean, Malzahn, we get a bunch of DBs and multiple linebackers and all that. And Harsin, I don't think we really knew enough about his recruiting tactics to figure it out, because he really only had like 1.5 classes, if you want to call it that, as you laugh. That's how I worded that. But
yeah,
you needed offensive linemen, you needed edge guys, and then I think you needed the future DBs, because you're going to lose a lot after this upcoming season. And so, what did they do? They went out and got that. You know, they flipped Xavier Miller, who I think is going to be an incredible talent for Auburn instantly. Keldrick Falk, I think, has a chance to start at edge. We'll see what happens. He's going to have to beat some older guys out, but I just think he's that good, that special. And Kane Lee, we'll see how quickly he gets onto the field, but just attacking positions of need. I mean, they've got tons of linemen. I don't think they're done. I think they're going to get some guys to the transfer portal, and that'll be a probably deeper conversation that we have on Locked On Auburn tomorrow. But just getting guys at positions of need, not just getting talent, but getting talent where you need talent. That's another box that I think that Hugh Freeze checked off in a short amount of time.
They signed 5 offensive linemen. I mean, I can't think of the last time Auburn...
Can you say it again, please?
Auburn signed 5 offensive linemen. I can't think of the last time Auburn did that, including a high school offensive tackle, which last I checked was in some sort of NCAA bylaw that we weren't allowed to do that.
Certainly felt that way.
I'm very excited that they've changed the rules and let us do that. And I mean, a lot of these players are like Connor Lew. Connor Lew is considered to be like a no doubt starter going forward. Not this year, but in like caliber of player, starter in the SEC.
If Auburn doesn't get a transfer center, he could be a starter.
He could start next year. Tate, I think he's already bigger than Tate Johnson. And so like that's a thing. Finish your wings, Tate Johnson. And so
I've just never seen an offensive lineman leave a restaurant and not eat all their food. I've just never seen it before.
I don't get it. But either way, like, they go out, they identify positions of need. And I want to reiterate this. I've said it once already, but there's 2 things I want to reiterate. 1, you signed 5 offensive linemen. But thing 2 I want to reiterate is they did all of this in 21 days.
That's right.
And Hugh Freeze was hired. The entire staff wasn't hired in 21 days. A lot of these guys came in over the subsequent days and weeks, and they still brought this class from the 50s or 60s into a top 20 class.
That's right.
In 21 days. What can they do with an entire year to build relationships for the 2024 class?
All right, another gift that Hugh Freeze gave us where it's like, is he Santa Claus? He kept, I guess at this point, a symbol of Auburn home. We discussed that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. If you are hiring and you want to revamp your staff in 2023, LinkedIn Jobs is the best way to do that. Why? Because they equip your small business or business of any size with all the tools that you need to find the best fits for you. And also, you can do it for free. We always love the for free here. So just go to LinkedIn Jobs, and you can add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And then they can equip you with all sorts of things to find the person you want to go after. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Lindsay, Crosby, the next gift that Hugh Freeze gave the Auburn fan base, keeping Carnell Williams home. And sure, I think some people would be like, well, what was he going to do? Not let him stick around? Well, there were other coaches that Auburn was going after reportedly that they didn't want that. They didn't want to kind of have to fight off that shadow of, Carnell Williams wanted to be, so many folks wanted Carnell Williams to be the guy. There would have been a lot of coaches that didn't want to deal with that. Hugh Freeze loved it. Seems like he embraced it day one. And I think it turned into, some of the success that he's found early on, keeping Carnell Williams around. So I think that's a great gift.
This goes back to that conversation we had about the last guy, about Byron, and discussing.
What was Byron's last name?
Lindsay? Haskins.
Got it.
And him not doing anything but coach. Like, he was there to coach. He didn't want to recruit. But he also didn't want to do a lot of the other things.
Who is this you're talking about?
Byron Haskins.
Got it.
But he also didn't want to do a lot of the things that you would expect a Power 5 head coach, never mind SEC head coach, to do. Like, right. You can't miss Bo Jackson's golf tournament. You can't not show up to this thing and shake the right hands and take photos and all of that.
Yeah.
And Hugh Freeze feels to me like he absolutely understands and embraces every single bit of that. He understands that this job is more than just X's and O's and Jims and Joes. It's also managing relationships with your roster, with your coaching staff, with the fans, with the boosters. And so he said, I'm going to take Carnell Lamar Williams. You may know him as Cadillac. I'm going to take him. Not only am I going to keep him, I'm going to elevate him. I'm going to make him the assistant head coach. He is my right-hand man, and together we are going to fix Auburn football together. And that's just not something where everything with the last guy, Byron Haskins, very much felt like it was they did this wrong, the players executed wrong or whatever, and I have to fix it. And Hugh Freeze, it very much feels like we're going to do this together. And it's me and Cadillac leading the charge. And I love him for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this in most P5 schools. Not all, but most, especially at Auburn. And I would say more so at Auburn than the vast majority of other programs. Like, the football team is important. Obviously, their execution and what they do on Saturdays is extremely important. But it's bigger than that, right? Like, it's part of, I mean, if you're watching a daily Auburn show like this one in June and July, like, you love Auburn. Like, you don't just love the football team. It's part of who you are. It's part of your personality. People will tell you if they went to Auburn within 20 seconds of talking to you, like, they find a way to bring it up in every conversation. It's just who we are.
They have that room in their house.
Yeah, everybody has that room in their house.
Every Auburn fan knows what I'm talking about. You got the room in your house.
Yep, you got the Auburn room. Doesn't matter where you live, totally. And so, yeah, I think bringing back a guy like Carnell Williams, who unified the Auburn fan base in a way that I've never seen before, with the exception of maybe Cam Newton. Can I say that?
Saved Auburn football. Can I say that?
Maybe so. Maybe so.
I can picture an alternative history where instead of Cadillac Williams, you named someone else. And
or you keep Byron Haskins.
Byron Haskins.
Yeah.
And the energy, the enthusiasm just slips away. Auburn limps into early signing day and puts up a class, even if Byron's fired after the season and you have a new coach for a couple weeks. You put up a class that's in maybe you improve to the 40s. And Auburn is not competitive for 2 years while you're trying to accumulate talent to improve the roster enough to compete for the SEC. And instead, I feel like this team will be more competitive next year.
I was reminded this past Friday that I was in the camp of keeping him for the remainder of the year. And I just want to say I was wrong on that. I was certainly wrong on that. I admitted it very early. I admit it now. It is what it is. All right.
I wanted to believe.
What's up?
I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe in the culture he was trying to instill. I wanted to believe in all of that. And the shame, I guess what happened is I believed more than he did.
Yikes. All right. The next gift that Hugh Freeze has given us is an offensive scheme that is relevant in 2022 and 2023. He was able to win at Liberty and beat SEC teams at Liberty with lesser talent because of his scheme and because of the program that he was able to build up offensively. And I think that is extremely exciting. Bringing in Philip Montgomery, Philip with 1L, I think will only enhance that because he's the running game expert, which will be nice to see how they kind of balance each other out. But for the first time in 8 years, since 2014, 2015, and then we didn't really have an offense of 15, but in 14 and in 17. But outside of that, it's like there hasn't really been a whole lot of offensive excitement at Auburn other than 13, 14, and 17. 19 had its moments, but not really consistent. And it's like all of a sudden, I'm excited about what this team could do offensively. I think Hugh Freeze, even if he doesn't totally revamp the offensive line and get it to where it needs to be in year one, that the scheme will help the players out. And then just having a coach that I believe on offense will put players in situations to succeed. That is a huge gift. And I can't wait to see that come to fruition in September.
Yeah, and he confirmed on Wednesday, Philip Montgomery will be calling plays.
1L.
And if you remember his 1L, my wife Allison with 1L appreciates that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll remember his opening press conference, he talked about some of the coaches that he had heard from that were interested in the job. He said, I could probably help them with their red zone stuff, but they could probably help me with everything else. And so I feel comfortable about the idea of you have a guy in Philip Montgomery who has coached good offenses being supported by an offensive head coach that has coached great offenses. And you have the two of them together collaborating on game days. And so, like you said, I think a big part of what you're going to see next year, you're not going to see the fully armed and operational Hugh Freeze offense, but you're going to see it'll be like the Death Star in Return of the Jedi. It's partially constructed, but
okay.
but it works. It is a threat.
Who's Darth Vader if we have a Death Star?
Byron Haskins. And so it is a situation where they're going to scheme guys open. They're going to do schemes to protect the quarterback. You'll see, tight ends both off the ball and in line. You'll see gap schemes, RPOs, vertical shots in the passing game, all of these different things. And whether it's Robby Ashford or somebody else, it's going to look like a modern offense that for the first time in a long time, you can kind of get excited about what the offense could do. Felt like too many times watching the team this year and last year, you were watching, but you weren't necessarily excited for the offense. You were kind of dreading a little bit what was going to happen when they dropped back to pass and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So having an offense that is modern with tons of motion and, eye candy and getting guys wide open for those busted plays is going to be fun to watch.
All right, the last gift that we're going to talk about that Hugh Freeze has given us already, a new saying, and it also may come with a Lindsay Crosby rant. You don't want to miss that. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Bet Online is the best place to wager on all of your sports gambling needs. They have more props, odds, and lines than anyone else at any corner of the interwebs. All you need to do is just search Bet Online. Your search device will take it right to you. So easy to use their website. And like I said, they've got more props and odds than anybody else out there. Auburn hosts Florida next week. I assume they'll be favored. If you think they win big, you need to throw it all down. Let's go. Let's go. Put it all on the Tigers. No, I'm not saying to do that unless you really, really want to. But we'll see what that line is closer to time. Bet Online, it's where the game starts. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Also for folks that live out of town, alumnihall.com. If you want to get suited up and all Auburn basketball swagged out, Alumni Hall is the best place to do that. They have affordable, awesome, legitimate, officially licensed Auburn gear for all sports. Right now, obviously, basketball is the way to go with Auburn baseball. Not too far away. Lindsay be the first to tell you that. But be sure to check it out. Auburn and Opelika physical store locations if you live throughout the East Alabama area. If you live a little bit farther out, Go to alumnihall.com. Let them know that we sent you. And we really appreciate our friends at Alumni Hall for partnering with us here at Locked On Auburn. Lindsay Crosby. Hugh Freeze gave us a new term. I love the Gus Malzahn boom.
Mm-hmm.
Harsha, we didn't really get one.
Just watch.
Right? And then we get Yahtzee with Hugh Freeze, which I think is awesome. Thought it was cheesy for about 2 seconds. Then I thought about it, and then it was great. And it's not a board game, according to you, Lindsay Crosby.
Can I take the mic for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, so December 11th, 2022, simpler time. You know, we were hopeful what Auburn could do when it came to the recruiting class. We weren't sure. And Hugh Freeze...
Pre-flipping 8 players.
Pre-flipping 8 players.
Yeah.
Power 5 players, good players. Hugh Freeze tweets Yahtzee in a gif of Aubie running down the field. And everybody...
I'm sorry, you're taking the mic. I'm going away.
No. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, I just think that tweet in a vacuum is awesome. I think it's great. I don't need any more context for that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's, if nothing else, I don't think the last guy tweeted gifs of Aubie with War Eagle. But anyway. And our favorite pundit, Joe Goodman Jr. from AL.com, has a quote tweet of Hugh Freeze. And he says, and I quote here because I pulled it up, "I appreciate the board game reference by whoever is running High Freeze's Twitter account. When the account starts posting Boardwalk and Park Place, then we'll know it's time for Alabama and Georgia to stop worrying. Dice emoji, dice emoji, dice emoji, dice emoji, dice emoji." 5 dice emojis because it's 5 dice in Yahtzee.
Oh, that's clever. Got it.
A couple things here. 1, Yahtzee is not a board game.
Oh, wow.
There is no board involved in Yahtzee. There is a piece of paper. I will give you that there is a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And depending on your definition of board, which I'm pretty bored when I read his articles, but whatever. Depending on your definition of board, you may think a piece of paper is a board, but Milton Bradley themselves say this is a dice game, not a board game.
Wow.
2, Monopoly is an awful board game. Monopoly is the worst board game ever created. Monopoly is designed to drag out forever when you play by the actual rules. Auctioning off properties. It is awful. It reminds us about how landlords have way too much power in the system. Not going to go into all that. Not with this final score, but Yahtzee is a terrible. Monopoly is a terrible game. 3rd, I like Yahtzee. It's fun. You can play it on your phone in 10 minutes. So I'm happy that Hugh Freeze's thing is Yahtzee. It's corny. It's dumb. They put out a video on signing day of Hugh Freeze playing Yahtzee at his desk, and it's all 6s and Yahtzee, and you used it for the intro, and I love it because it's just corny and dad jokey, and that is what we need right now is the levity of a dad joke.
I also love that the it's clearly edited. They didn't even try to clean that up and cut that well. I just everything about that video I absolutely loved. I was ready to run through a wall, and the caption on that tweet was just "It was a good day" or something like that. And it's dang right it was. Dang right it was. And
I'm ready to throw 5 dice at a wall.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, yeah, no, thank you, Hugh Freeze, for giving us that because I think it's great.
Yeah, I love it.
I think it's simple. I think it's marketable, and I think it's something we can all just yell when something good happens. So I liked it.
They also, in that same tweet, they also had the freezing cold emoji and an ice cube. And I just love how our emoji game so now, easy. We have so many more options under Hugh Freeze. The GIFs, the emojis, Auburn Twitter loves that stuff. So many options. I'm hyped. I am 100% bought in for it.
Yeah, I'm there with you, man. I'm there with you. Lindsay, how can people find you, hear you, love you, all that good stuff, buddy?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. My show, Locked On Auburn Prospects, is available wherever you find your podcast and on YouTube. You can find the writing, auburndaily.com, and the merch, aushirts.com. Zach mentioned baseball season's coming soon. We're going to be ready for it.
Yes, we are. You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com as well. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.